see you. Do we have to go on the AA and then use that as a watch party?
Oh, yeah, I see.
Turn this around. There. Okay, good evening from South Africa, but we'll just wait till more people come on and then we will introduce ourselves. So in the meantime, we'll just have a sip of coffee and keep it simple. Huh? How's it, Cindy? How's it, Richard? Just wait for a couple more people. It's all obviously all around the world, so different times. Tell you quickly about Cape Town. Beautiful in Cape Town. Lovely country we live in. It's got its problems, serious problems, and by the grace of God, we'll work it out. The last time I waited this long was to get bail, but it's okay. We'll just let the movie unfold as it's meant to unfold, because there's no use just starting just halfway in the picture. Cindy, it's lovely to see you and Big Frank again. Amazing man, Big Frank. I'll never forget him when I said to him at the convention in Ohio in the United States of America. I said, Big Frank, tell me your story. And he said to me, one day. And I kept on telling people that, and I tell people that wherever I hold a meeting about Big Frank and his Harley Davidson. Great, beautiful man. Cindy, great what you do for alcoholics and for addicts in America. Really, Cindy, the garden you do for Bob's house and that is I don't think you get enough credit, but it keeps you sober and it keeps me sober. And thank you for being my friend from America. And God's willing, I will be there again to come and visit the great state of Ohio. Okay, well, just Cindy, you must just tell me if I when I must start, or because I don't think the other people are on yet. I don't even know what time it is in America at the moment, and all around the world. Obviously, it's different times. Huh? Okay, I see there were other people online. Good evening to all. Good evening to Michelle. How are you? Hello, Richie, baby, my Springbok wrestler. Hope you're well. Come through the program of RAEL that started with Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, I'm going to say the Serenity Prayer. Please join me, and then people will join as we go along. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, so here we are tonight, and thank you, Cindy, for the invite to share on this platform. This platform was started many years ago when I met Cindy on Facebook and she invited me, and I'll speak a bit of that later. But what I can say is that, and I want to put this completely straight on the record, is that I'm not going to only give you my opinions of being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, because that will be contradictory to what I do. But Alcoholics Anonymous and God saved this man's life. I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous. So, life took some amazing turns, and just while the other people start getting on here, the gratitude that I have tonight for people like Cindy, people like Frank, I've met people all around the world in Alcoholics Anonymous, and we had one thing in common. Whether we were rich, whether we were poor, whether we were white or whether we were black, whether it was our first meeting or our second meeting or our 20th meeting or been in meetings for 15 years, There was love, but it was the unconditional love of helping the still suffering alcoholic and addict. And in my time, it was only obviously alcoholic. So let me take you back to where I was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was lost. I went into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I stayed there for 2.5 years. I had a very tough sponsor. And the sponsor used to tell me, Anthony, it's either this way, the highway, prison way, doorway, whatever you want to do it. But if you want what I got, you will follow me. So my sponsor was such a hard guy that when I used to go in there and say, I got problems with my mother and my father, I can't handle them at the moment, he would throw me a book and he'd say, go read the book. And once you've read the book, then you come back to me and I will explain to you what it is all about. So I stayed sober for 2.5 years. I spoke at conventions. I thought I was the greatest thing since Jacob Zuma. Then, after 2.5 years, I did not listen to my sponsor for a crucial thing. He said to me, Anthony, you are not ready for this, my boy. And I looked at him and I said, hey, but I am, because I'm different. Remember when people come and say, well, I'm different? It won't happen to me because I'm different. Even though the theory's been written, we hear from the old-timers that the practical has been told and practiced and told over and over and over and over again. But no, Mike, I'm different. It will never happen to me. Never can it happen to me. And I relapsed in Durban. For those from overseas, that's a lovely town in Durban, in South Africa, Durban. And then my problem started. But I must say, leading up to that, I went to a nice school. I wrote Standard 8 3 times, and then I was put through, and then I wrote Matric, and they never wrote back. So in actual facts, I got a Standard 7. So the best 3 years of my life were in Standard 8. So that didn't worry me because sport was my life. I wanted to play sport. I wanted to play for my country. I wanted to play cricket for South Africa. And I see Auntie Lizzie's watching. She now gives me cricket tickets. And when I go sit at Newlands, in her, in her seats in the president's stand, and I watch the people at Newlands, and I think, what could it have been? But if I roll the movie a bit forward, I think to myself, what could it have been if I did not walk into the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous? When we're in Alcoholics Anonymous, we cannot be a spectator in Alcoholics Anonymous. When we serve our fellow man, that is the time that we're going to become a better person, a better leader. And leaders don't want to make followers. Leaders want to make leaders to go out there and carry the message to the still suffering. If I cannot carry the message to the still suffering, I haven't been through the steps. I can't go from step 1 and suddenly find sobriety, go to step 12, and then I want to go conquer the world because in the middle there's no meat. I believe, and this is my belief, that recovery has become too politically correct. We need to keep it simple. We need to keep it simple that this is how you do it. With the advent of social media, it's taken a whole new concept. But when I came back to AA, after 20 odd years, I think it was 17 years to be exact, that's when my problems had started. Like I said, I come from a beautiful family. But when I was young, I had the best role model. When I was 5 years old, and bless my dad's soul, I loved my dad. Bless his soul. My dad was an alcoholic. And I can remember my dad at the age of 5. My first memory, beating my mother up. When my dad was sober, he was the most beautiful man. But when he was drunk, he was a pig. And I didn't understand why my dad would do this. So there was my role model right in front of me, never to use alcohol. I used to tell my mom, I promise you, one day, when I got older, 10, 11 years old, Mom, I will never, ever, will I use alcohol. Because I've seen what alcohol did in our house. My friends around the world, only when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, that beautiful, beautiful organization, did I find out that my dad was not a bad man. My dad suffered from a disease called alcoholism. Only then could I forgive my father. My father was a good provider. He gave us everything. He worked for one company for 43 years. But when he drank, he became what I became later on in life. I then left school after not graduating. But now we can't blame that because I didn't go and drink alcohol because I didn't graduate. Let's not get silly with each other. Because sometimes today we're finding excuses for everything. If I want sobriety, I must be willing to go to any length. What length am I willing to go to find my sobriety? If I'm going to take the easier, softer way, I'm going to pick up the easier, softer stuff that is available. I can't do that. So then I left and I became a detective in the narcotic bureau, in the South African Narcotic Bureau, which is the drug squad. And then I thought I was Don Johnson. For the friends who are from America, they'll know Miami Vice, and we watched the episodes about 20 years after that. And then that whole spiral started. And then I went into the murder and robbery unit. And the murder and robbery unit was a very elite unit, and I was a very young man. And being a young man in the murder and robbery unit with the booze, with a badge, and with a bullet, I became a very dangerous man. And the alcohol just consumed more and more and more. I left the police after a distinguished career in the police. I believe I did well. I got a lot of accolades, etc., etc. But alcohol was the problem. Then the problem started. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, stayed sober for 2.5 years, like I said. And when I relapsed after 2.5 years in 4 days. I lost my wife. I lost my job. I lost my dignity. I lost my integrity. I lost everything that I told people. Don't do this. What did Anthony go and do? Anthony went to go and do it. I went home, got a couple of jobs, worked out, didn't work out, became the national director of a big retail store. And then I went to prison for the first time. The insanity of alcoholism. I could never drink like the normal person again. I could never grow new legs and say, okay, well, I'm going to be different. Because that was my attitude the whole time. I can do it differently. So I've been married more times than Elizabeth Taylor, but that's besides the point. That was the compulsiveness and the impulsiveness of my addiction. I don't hate alcohol. Alcohol hates me. I didn't kill alcohol. Alcohol killed me. It stripped me bare of everything I had. And after prison, I came out and I did my time, and I came out and I went to my mom and I said, Mom, I'm coming home. And she said, no, you're not, my boy. You're going to go sober yourself up. I don't care where you go. And they refused to pay for rehab for me. I've never been to a rehab by the grace of God. And I went to the streets, my friends. This alcoholic had to go right down to start the step up. He could never go halfway. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. And in those days, the turning point was my turning point. We had to go where I turned. Later in life did I realize in recovery that actually, when I got into the co-pilot seat and there was another pilot, I knew exactly where I was going. And the streets were not easy for those years that I was on the streets. No teeth, long hair, same clothes, sleeping on cardboard, sleeping in front of churches, church doors, sleeping in front of shop doors, asking God, where are you? God had never left because God was there and Anthony was here, but Anthony just moved all away. For everything that he did, he just moved on and on and on. But God stayed constant. As it says there, in the third step, I handed my will over to the care of God. But when it didn't go my way, I took it completely back. I then got involved, just to cut a long story short, with gangsters and high-flying gangsters, and I was living a dream, the dream world of the underworld, without knowing that I was actually making a fool of myself. I caused a lot of people harm. But I knew there was a program out there. And something was keeping me away from the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my friends, it was one thing. It was pride. What would the people say when I come back to AA? Where have you been, etc., etc.? Obviously, no, if I'm not coming to AA, and I was very active in AA, and I had another 2 good sponsors, the obvious place that I was at was I was using. Something had to happen in our life. Something had to happen in my life. Even though I'd been to the streets, been to the prisons, been homeless, been hungry, been faithless, been godless, been everything. But I wanted something to save my life. God, grant me the serenity. Sometimes we say that serenity prayer at meetings, but we say it thinking what we're going to answer when the speaker is finished. Sometimes you must listen more to the speaker. And if a comment comes up, naturally you can just comment. You don't have to prepare a comment so someone's going to say, wow, that man's got amazing sobriety. Because it's not what we say in the meeting. It's what we do to our still suffering alcoholic and addict. For the person who has walked into that meeting for the very first time. Because what he sees is what he wants. And if he sees something he doesn't like, he ain't coming back. And it's our duty to carry the message. Our duty to still be humble enough to say, listen, you're my brother, I will be with you, I will walk with you. I'm not your estate agent, I'm not your escort agent, I'm nothing else to you. But the man that is going to try and help you by the grace of God to find sobriety. If there's a need that you must help him to pay his rent, which has been done, you do it. But you don't allow people to take advantage of your kindness. Because we become more humble, it does not mean that we've become a doormat at all. Coming out of the streets, and in 2004, I was weighing in at almost 45 kilos. I was a walking stick. And in 2005, on the 4th of April, my mother, who I love dearly, who's still alive, and she's got dementia in her old age home, but she's proud of her son today. That is the same woman I took hostage for years. I didn't take friends, I took hostages, my friend. Today I like to take friends with me. And Mom was amazing, and one day she walked into my room, and she said, David is dead. I said, what do you mean, Ma? She said, your nephew David is dead. He was the firstborn of my sister's firstborn and my mom and dad's first grandchild. How did he die, Ma? I was coming off a heavy binge. He put a rope around his neck, Anthony. He killed himself. He was an alcoholic drug addict. My life changed forever then. But still for 2 months, I used that as an excuse to drink and drug more than I ever have in my life. I drank and I looked for company to share the sad story of my nephew killing himself. Friends, to this day, our family has never healed. And on the 28th of June 2005, 15 years ago, by the grace of God, by the program and the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and listening to people, not going to a meeting after 2 weeks and trying to tell people how to run their lives in Alcoholics Anonymous. I listened. And I listened intently, because now I wanted what they had. I was older, maybe a bit wiser, but I wanted that sobriety. And I listened, and 2005 came, and I went to, they say 90 meetings, 90 days. I did just on 2,000 meetings in 2 years. I missed one day when I remember it clearly. The icons in our lives, you must remember, is when my mom had an operation to her eye. And I was at the hospital with her. I ate AA. I slept AA. I drank AA. I wanted AA. Because AA works. No one must tell me AA doesn't work. Because if you can save a drunk like me, and save a drunk like so many millions around the world, let's not say AA doesn't work. AA may not work the way you want it to work, but the principles of AA and the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, they work. What has happened to me since then? We don't have to go down more of the war stories. It's like catching a plane. I've always described AA like catching a plane. I must make sure that I check the dates. Am I where I'm going to? Am I available? Is the people where I'm going to available? I must check, and if I've got finances in my bank to pay for the ticket. Once I've got the ticket, I have to book the tickets. Then I must pay for the tickets. Then I must pack to leave. And when I pack to leave, after every single, I'm referring this to recovery now, my friends. When I pack to leave, I must make sure in that bag of mine is the toolbox that's going to keep me sober. When I go through customs, the toolbox must be the first thing that goes through. When I give them my boarding pass, the toolbox must board with Anthony. And it must not stay closed. Friends who may be here new in recovery, we've all got a gift. Every one of us has got a gift. Whether they're in recovery, not in recovery, or they're just non-drinkers, don't use dope, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of times the gift stands in front of us. But it's got such a beautiful bow on it, we don't want to open up the gift. And if you open up the gift and you take the lid off and you see inside and you look inside, you'll see what is inside. Hopefully the letters HOW. Practice this and you will find sobriety. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Rigorous honesty. Not honesty that we're going to go to a part where I'm only going to be honest when it suits me. It can never be honest when it suits me. I have to be honest and practice these principles in all my affairs. What has happened since 2005? 2007, I was blessed with a hectare of farm. Today I'm the owner of a drug rehabilitation center. I'm an owner of a sober living, where people come in and they stay for 6 months. If you're going for rehab for 3 weeks, no, hold it, man, hold it. We need to do our steps. We need to get from inside outside for us to be sober. We can't look well and well built, etc., and say to mommy when she comes to visit, hey, mom, look at me now. I put on 20 kilograms. I'm fine. No. The dirt comes from inside out. When we empty the vacuum cleaner, we take the bag that's inside and we take that out, and the vacuum cleaner still looks beautiful. But the filth is in the bag. And that's what I needed to do. I needed to clean house, trust God, and carry this message to anyone who wanted to hear it. I've dedicated the last 15 years of my life to carry this message. I've been lucky. I have been lucky that I've been able to use my experience of drinking and drugging and whoring. For those people who don't know what that is around the world, that's when you take a woman and you pay for it. Hopefully we don't do that anymore, but we don't. Excuse me, because we don't need to. We don't need to. We need to know that if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous with any other mindset other than I want sobriety, one day at a time, until the day I die, you will find sobriety. We can't get to a point where we realize, where we realize that our lives are so unmanageable. I got this farm. I've been invited. The farm is called RAEL, RAEL. That's Recovering Addicts, Alcoholics, Empowering Lives. And you can see it on the website, www.rael.co.za. Not yet to advertise. We don't have to advertise. Because for once in Anthony's life, his actions are speaking louder than his words. My actions have to speak louder than my words. One of the greatest highs I've ever got. I've been so lucky to be invited around the world to share my testimony. Not to go and share your testimony as a motivational speaker, guest speaker, whatever you want to call it. Of what God, Alcoholics Anonymous, and beautiful people have done in my life. A couple of years ago, I had the greatest high that no alcohol, no drug, no woman could ever give me. I stood up in front of thousands and thousands of people in Akron, Ohio, invited there by Cindy Lorenz, and I spoke at that football stadium. I then went to New York, and I sat in the chair of Bill W. at his table, and I shared my story in New York. And they played Amazing Grace the day in Ohio, and I thought, wow, God. Amazing Grace. How did I get here? I got here by taking the cotton wool out of my ears and sticking it in my mouth and shutting up and listening to the people who had good sobriety. That's all we wanted in life. I've got a beautiful relationship back with my mother, even though she's got dementia. I've done things that are wrong. I've been investigated when I was in the police for murder, for whatever you want to call it, but those are all past memories now. And now I try and help young men on this farm find what I've got. I'm not perfect yet. It's progress, not perfection. But every day I strive to be a better Anthony. I may not be the man I used to be. Or I may not be the man I want to be. But thank God, I'm not the man I used to be. I'm not the man falling in gutters and sleeping. I'm not the man tormenting people through my alcoholism and drugs. I'm not the man who made enemies upon enemies upon enemies. Alcoholics Anonymous has taught me a way of life, not a life's way. Alcoholics Anonymous has given me the courage to get up every morning and say, when it's not going my way, let it go God's way, and accept the prayer of serenity. We are not saints, and we never will be. But let's not play with what we've been given, the greatest gift of life, sobriety. Let's not get to the pettiness where we think that sobriety is something to play with. You cannot play with your life. If you want to play with your life, go out there, test the theory, and come back and tell us if we were wrong. And we're not in a competition. It doesn't matter if I've got my 15 years of sobriety, but it doesn't matter if the other person has got a week sobriety. We all got one thing in common, maybe more. We're one drink, one arm length away from the next drink or drug. I have to protect my sobriety at all times. I have to have the grace of God on me, and I ask that at all times without being an angel. I have to look at things in a different light today. I don't want to ever go back to the life I've been to. I have to stick close to people who are in recovery. I have to take guidance where guidance is needed. I can't play this game. Because I played alcohol, I played drugs, I played women, I played whatever there was. And I thought I was going to come out on top. I remember when I was getting sick after binges, into the toilet bowl, praying to God that please take this away from me. And the toilet bowl always said made in China. It looks like everything is made in China today. And I promise God I will never use again. Until 3-4 days later, I felt better and I used again. When I was in prison, I prayed to God. When I was standing in front of the judge, God, just let this man let me out, and I will never go and pick up a drink again in my life. But as soon as that happened, I picked up that drink to celebrate that I wasn't in prison anymore. Today I've got so much grace for what happens around me. I've met beautiful people. I've met beautiful people all around the world. And all I have to mention is, that's me, Anthony the alcoholic, from the park bench, saved by the grace. Ladies and gentlemen, none of you have to stay in the pit of hell. This is Alcoholics Anonymous to me. There was a pit, and we're screaming out for help. And we ask God, get me out of this, and I will never ever drink and drug again. And the doctor comes past, and the doctor writes you a script and says, go get tablets, you'll be all right, just a bit of detox. Because what some doctors know about addiction is actually quite frightening. My dad always taught me, Anthony, talk what you believe in, but make sure you got the facts to back it up. Then the priest came past, the minister came past, and he said, I'm just screaming out, God help me, God help me, God help me. I'm going through DTs. I remember the times I was going through DTs in mental institutions, not rehabs. And the priest would stand there and he would pray and he would say, Anthony, my boy, trust God. I pray a blessing on your life that you never get to this point. The last person who found out he was an alcoholic in my relationship was me. And after the doctor and after the preacher, there came the psychiatrist and he said, hey, hold it. You must go have your head read. I said, no, I don't have to have my head read. I need to stop drinking. I'm an alcoholic. I cannot get up. When I drank in the morning, the first thing I looked for in the morning was not to see if I was alive, because I wasn't alive. I was dead inside. Alcohol had destroyed me from inside out and outside in. Yet denial is such a big thing. That's why people want to help. People want to help other people. But then they think it becomes a game. Never forget the person that helped you to get sober. You don't have to like him. You don't have to want to socialize with him. But just respect him for taking his time to carry the message of hope. And keep it simple. Keep it absolutely simple. And then, while I'm in this pit screaming for help, God help me, I never want to relapse. I never want to use again. I can't take these DTs. I can't take the shaking. I can't take people not looking at me. I can't take it that I lose my teeth every time I puke. I can't take this, Lord. And there far in the distance, I see a man walking on. This happened to me, Anthony Hall, the drunk from South Africa. I'm passionate about my recovery. Because I don't take it as a chore, I take it as a blessing. I don't take going to meetings as a problem. I take it as a blessing. I don't do a 12-step call as a chore. I take it as an honor to go and carry my story. There's no greater honor in this life than to carry your story to the next suffering alcoholic. Because that man or woman has trusted you to come and give them something that we longed for our whole life. And that was hope. Hope. And screaming in this pit, and I see this man coming so far away, and I said to him, what are you doing here? He stands outside, fairly well dressed, doesn't tell me who he is, and he says then, Can I help you? And I said, what can you help me with, sir? I've had the doctors, psychiatrists, the ministers, the priests, you name it. He gets into the pit with me. And I say to the man, what are you doing in this pit? Here you are in this pit and I'm trying to get out, my brother. He says, what's your name? And I said, my name is Anthony. He says, the reason I'm in the pit is because I've been there and I know the way out. That man saved my life. I'm going to put on two guys from the farm, from the recovery farm. One is 5 years sober. The other one is coming up 2 years sober. Youngsters, young men. One is my manager. They can also share a bit of hope to you. But I want to implore everyone, don't play with this one. Don't when something happens. It's easy to read the serenity prayer when life is going well. But do we read the serenity prayer when it's not going well? I lost my father. I had a divorce during my recovery. But that a drink or a drug was not going to make it better. Don't go into a meeting there and judge the speaker. He's on his level of sobriety. Rather encourage him with love. Be honest and straight to him. Listen, brother, if you're talking and you got 3 weeks sober, don't tell a person how to live sober. Come back, and then tell us how to live sober. Get a sponsor who's got a sponsor. I want to close with what I love is the grace. But I just thought I will take you through the 12 steps in 30 seconds. That's what I do every day. And I do it in the rehab every day to the people. Excuse for my glasses, but I'm getting older, but thank God I can see. My eyes are clear now. I can see clearly now. In the past, I couldn't see because I was too drunk. Too drunk. I've got 20 minutes to go, I see. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become unmanageable. There's a lot of things in life that I'm powerless over. I'm powerless over the wind. I'm powerless over the rain. I'm powerless over what's happening in our country today. But it ain't making my life unmanageable. Don't wait till the life is so unmanageable that the repairs is going to rob you of a beautiful life. Don't want, for people that are early in recovery listening to this, don't want 15 years of sobriety. Because I, Anthony Hall, I will swap 15 years of sobriety for your 3 weeks of sobriety. You must say I'm mad. No, I'm not. Used to be called that and worse. You know why? Because the road and the journey of sobriety is one of the most beautiful roads you'll ever undertake. It's beautiful. With its bumps, with its highs and with its lows. I get up in the morning, I admit I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm not powerless over anything else. I'm powerless over alcohol, powerless over death. But sometimes we want to make excuses that my granny didn't greet me, so I want to go pick up a bottle. You're not ready then for recovery, my brother. You're ready for self-pity. And self-pity run riot will kill us. Us, the addicts, will kill us. The insane part, I don't do much insane anymore. I still do things that are insane, but they're legally insane. That's step 2. Every morning we do our devotions. God, your will, not my will. Step 4, I make a ruthless and fearless inventory. Do that step so you can do step 5. You cannot leave anywhere, or you cannot grow in sobriety unless you have got rid of the garbage on the back. It's like leaving a treatment center and you haven't worked anything out. You're still taking home the garbage. The only thing you haven't done is you haven't used, because you shouldn't be able to get drugs in a recovery center. Our character defects. I was invited to Ohio to speak. I'll never forget, on a Friday. on character defects. God, I still got many, but I'm working on them. Humbly ask God to take them away from us. That's step 7. Step 8, I've made amends. I've made amends to everyone that counts. Those who are dead, I can't make amends. I can put a letter in a balloon and let it fly up. And I can ask God. Step 9, when I want to harm them. Don't want to harm people anymore. I've harmed too many. Step 10, my personal inventory every night. Anthony, have you been selfish? Have you been honest? Have you helped your fellow addict? Like I said, there's no gift greater than carrying this message to the still suffering alcoholic. But a lot of time people said, they want to go to meetings, but they're sitting on the couch and meeting time comes and they say, I don't want to go to a meeting now. And the girlfriend or wife says, okay, it's fine, my darling, we'll go next week. And then next week comes, it's raining. Don't worry, we'll go next week. And us alcoholics are so manipulative and so dishonest when we're not following the program. We will say, yes, my dear. And then after 4 weeks, we'll tell our loved ones, you know what? I don't need AA because I'm still sober. You're not sober, you're dry. What message do you want to carry, brother? Imagine if me and you went to the first meeting and the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous were closed. Where would we be today? 11 are conscious contact all the time with God. All the time. Without being some kind of a hero. And the 12th one is carrying the message. Sorry, that's just our dogs on the farm. Is carrying the message to the still suffering alcoholic. How do you pay anyone? How do you pay your sponsor back? Or how do you hope to stay sober? Is by carrying the message to the still suffering alcoholic and addict. I finish with the word grace. And then I'm going to ask Kurt to come up and say a few words while we've got left for the hour. I just want to say thank you so much for letting me share. Thank you today that I'm from AA, that I'm blessed with a beautiful rehab and sober living. It's a non-profit organization, so I'm not becoming a rich man out of it. I detest those people. I don't hate them, but they're making money out of people's lives and misery. The grace is the gratitude. Thank you very much for people from all around the world for listening tonight, for indulging me. Thank you to Cindy Lorenz and to Big Frank. We shall see each other again in Ohio. That is for sure. I will never forget that weekend. The R is respect. Today I've got respect. I've got respect because I got respect for my fellow man and I got respect for myself. And if I can't respect myself, I cannot respect my fellow man. The A is the acceptance. I accept that I suffer from a fatal disease, mental and physical, called alcoholism. The C is the courage. My friends, it takes courage to find sobriety. It takes courage to go into the unknown. It takes courage to say, okay, here I am. It takes courage to surrender. Who wants to surrender? No addict wants to surrender. No person wants to surrender. But it takes courage to surrender and walk through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. Men and women who are sitting there, to stay sober and help the next person coming in. Keep that courage up. I implore you, young people in recovery, I'm no better than you. Never have been and never will be. But don't miss this journey. Don't miss this journey for yourself and for your loved ones. Haven't we done and caused enough pain that we don't have to come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and try and cause more for people who want recovery? And the E of grace is the empathy for the still suffering addict and alcoholic, the still suffering mother and father, the still suffering brother and sister, the still suffering human being that has never found what we have found. There's many people that would love what we got even if they're not alcoholics or addicts. This has been a journey. And I pray to God that this journey continues and keeps me sober like it's kept hundreds of thousands, millions of people sober. That I can be remembered as Anthony, not the drunk. Anthony, the man that found sobriety and stayed sober through the grace of God and the program and principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you. God bless you. Wherever you are in the world, keep safe. Thank you. I now introduce you to Kurt. He'll speak for 5 minutes, and then Graeme will be after him for 5 minutes. Thank you, Cindy. God bless you, people.
Good evening, everybody. I'm grateful, first of all, to be sober, and that the AA message of hope, strength, and experience was carried to me. I obviously, the first time I had a drop of alcohol, and I got completely drunk, and it did something for me that I thought I was looking for. And it obviously spiraled out of control, and one thing led to the next, and I, over the years, couldn't live with or without alcohol and substance anymore. So eventually I got myself into a situation where I was homeless, every kind of less, jobless, toothless, penniless. Everything that ends with less is what I had, and I was even soulless. The only souls that I had were the worn out soles of my shoes from walking the streets looking for the next drink and drug. But my main message that I want to carry tonight is a message of hope, that if our primary purpose has become to carry the message through the program and the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, which we try and live our lives according to, then that's the program that has saved my life. I asked Mr. Hall a question on why he never gives up on an addict or alcoholic, and his answer to me was that because the program and the AAs never ever gave up on him. So thank you for this message. Bless you all. And I hope this message finds you well. God bless.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Cindy, for giving me this opportunity. It's not going to be long, but hopefully I can spread that message of hope. So 5 years ago, I came into recovery, to Anthony Hall's rehab, and I thought I could speak about three things: what it was like, what happened, and what it is like now. Very quickly. And what it was like isn't really important, man, but I can tell you that I was a disgrace to the human race. I was ignorant, arrogant, I wasn't humble, I thought the world owed me something. And that obviously got me to the streets and to a world of destruction. It's a good way to put it. And so I came into rehab thinking I know it all. Thinking I had this big chip on my shoulder and what have you. And the very first meeting I ever heard was about a peeling onion, about the onion peeling, where we got layers of. We come into recovery as an onion, and we got layers on us. And Mr. Hall took that onion, he asked for an onion, and he started peeling off the layers. And I'll never forget this meeting. And as he peeled off the layers, he was explaining each layer of our arrogance and our ignorance and our unhumbleness and all our character defects that one can have, till you get to the core of the actual problem. And that was my very first meeting into recovery. That is what it's about. And thankfully I grasped onto it. And Anthony once called me into the house. I was about 3 months sober. And he told me, what's your problem? Because this man, he saw potential in me, man. Not many people did. He saw that potential in me, and he gave me the big book and he told me, you're going to study page 58 and read it over and over and over. So I had to write it down and read it and write it down and read it until I, let's say, knew it out of my head. And I did that for a while, and I don't regret it, because I understand the point now, a few years later, why he did that to me, man. Why I have to understand that honesty. And that is kind of like what it's like now. You know, I live a life honest. I identify my character defects. And I appreciate, with the utmost humility, the start of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got to give credit to Narcotics Anonymous also, but I get more out of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's my own personal opinion. I get more out of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it works if you work it. Thank you very much, Cindy, again for this opportunity, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Okay, those are just two of the success stories, and there's so many others. And thank you. And there's so many more who would like to share the story, but we will just keep it for there now. Thank you for helping me stay sober tonight. Thank you, Big Frank and Cindy and all my friends that I met in Ohio. And by the grace of God, I'll be back there for Founders Day next year. I know it's cancelled this year because of the virus, but hopefully next year I can rekindle what I got there last time out of Ohio. Thank you very much, and God bless you.